Suicide is a tough topic, but the Washington County Reach for Hope Suicide Prevention Coalition wants you to know that there is always hope. We are a caring community reaching out to provide compassion and hope for a community free of suicide. In the next half hour, we'll talk with community partners to identify risk factors, raise awareness, and discuss prevention strategies. Hello, and thanks for joining us on another edition of Reach for Hope, where there's always hope. I'm Melissa Anderson. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, a time for mental health awareness in organizations, survivors, and community members to unite in suicide prevention. With me today is the Vice Chair of the Reach for Hope Suicide Prevention Coalition, Claudine Discala. Thanks for joining us again today, Claudine.
Thanks for having me.
You've been on this show before, and you've done some amazing, wonderful work over the last year, and so I'm very happy to have you here to talk about it.
Thanks.
We've said this before, but let's talk a little bit about why you're so passionate about suicide prevention.
So I lost an ex-boyfriend. I was 20. He was 19. So it was a long time ago. But at the time, there was very little help available. There was very little awareness, not a lot of support, and a whole lot of stigma. So that's why I'm involved. Things have definitely gotten much better since that time, but we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, we're still talking about it. And this month, we're talking about it even more. It's National Suicide Prevention Month. There are several events organized throughout the month. Some have happened, some haven't yet. We need to talk about it and be aware of self-care and how to become more aware of our own mental health. You write a newsletter on behalf of Reach for Hope. You sent one out for September. Tell us a little bit about that and what's in it.
Yeah, I think this month being National Suicide Prevention Month, we're focusing on going upstream in the process. So what is upstream? It's getting help to people before they're in crisis. So really we want to drill down to the heart of the matter, which is what are the feelings that people are having that is leading them to feel like they don't want to be here anymore. And we know that we need to look for protective factors that can mitigate risk. So there's been lots of research and studies done, and we know some of those things are building a sense of belonging, a sense of community, making people feel like they belong, eliminating language that's stigmatizing and discriminating, building resilience in life skills and emotional resiliency.
Yeah, and that's easier said than done sometimes, especially when people are really in a dark moment. But we need to keep reinforcing that. And I want to talk a little bit more about that later. But can you tell us about some of the events that have already occurred where we're supporting organizations and organizations are supporting this cause and what's already happened?
Yeah, so we've already had National Suicide Prevention Week just ended. And the Utah Tech College here had Prevention Week, and I believe if you go to their website, I think they still have a calendar of events for the whole month going on. And then going forward, we have the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention has a Talk Away the Darkness campaign. So if you go to afsp.org, they've got their campaign up there, which has been running for a while, and they're really teaching you how to talk to someone who you're worried about, someone who seems to be struggling, someone who's maybe not acting the way they normally do, how to start that conversation and how to carry it on. And then we've got on September 23rd, we've got the AFSP Out of the Darkness Walk, which is our St. George Walk is going to be right here in Sullivan Park on that Saturday from 9 to 12, I think.
Yeah, and we also hear about National Pride Month, and that's a high-risk group as well.
Yes.
People have, there's different organizations such as Encircle here that are working on events as well. So if you want to go to their website, that would work as well.
Yeah.
And you talked about the national, the Out of the Darkness Walk. We had Sue McConkey, who's the organizer of this year's walk here in St. George, and she talked a little bit about things that she struggled with. And so if anybody wants to go back and look at her vodcast that we did a few weeks ago, that'd be great. You can look at it at Reach for Hope Utah on Facebook or our website at reachforhopeutah.org. Now, Claudine, tell us about the importance of spreading this awareness that we can understand so that people can think about how to deal with their problems, as you talked about resilience and stuff, and how to stay out of isolation for awareness.
Yeah. So it's a term, emotional literacy. So we want to learn about ourselves. We want to get to know ourselves. We want to understand ourselves and be able to identify our feelings. You know, there's so many of us that we go through the day and we're up and down and we're happy and we're sad and we're frustrated and we're really not even paying attention to what we're feeling. So we want to be able to identify the feelings we're having and learn how to express them in healthy ways. It's also involving mood control and self-regulation. But I think something really important, especially in today's day and age with all the anger and frustration and things, is learning how to create boundaries for yourself.
That's a big one.
Yeah. So the boundary is for you. It's not for anybody else. It's for you. So other people know how to treat you and what's acceptable to you and what's not.
Learning how to say no, I think, is one of the hardest things that we can do if we're a yes man.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been one of my problems too. And then I feel bad if I say no.
Yeah.
But you have to learn to set those boundaries if you're stressing at both ends of burning both ends of the candle.
Yeah. And we feel like we have to come up with some reason for giving the no. And we really don't have to say it. What the reason is, just know that won't work for me right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And besides that, you have a survivors of suicide loss group that meets here in St. George. Tell us about that and how difficult it is for people to maybe even show up for that, but how important it is to talk about your feelings, such as yourself. You've lost a boyfriend over that some years ago, and it's probably was really hard to talk about, but I'm sure you've come to terms with that, and other people have to learn to come to terms with that as well.
Yeah, so that's sort of the other end of the spectrum. Instead of prevention, we would call that postvention. So once you've lost someone, your risk for suicide now goes up exponentially because you're in the throes of dealing with this, and there's so much guilt involved. So you feel sort of personally responsible. So many people do feel that way. So I run a suicide loss support group. It meets in town once a month, the first Thursday of every month. I also have a Facebook group for it where I post reminders of the date and just helpful information. But yeah, it is very hard for people to come in. I know there's a lot of people that want to, that get referred, that call me, that text or email, and I'm planning on them coming and they don't. And I don't have any issue with that. I totally understand how hard it is to walk into a room of strangers and now pretty much talk about something that's so hard to talk about. But I will say, for anybody thinking about coming, we all get so much out of it, and you won't regret it if you come.
Yeah. That's good to know, and good to feel like there's somebody just like you that's been through similar things.
Because sometimes you can't talk to the people closest to you about that topic just because of the discomfort talking about it, the stigma that's still there. So you might want to turn to the people closest to you, but sometimes complete strangers who have had this experience can really help. And
I imagine there's an association of guilt there, even though there's probably not anything you could have done, even if you did know the warning signs. That guilt is probably still hanging like a cloud over your head going, what could I have done more, or what could I have, and that goes to say, how can you always prevent this? It is not always preventable in a way. If a person has made up their mind, even though it might be just a false sense of security there, it's hard to put that into perspective.
Yeah, and it's a sort of a slippery slope because this month is Suicide Prevention Month. So the campaign slogans everywhere are suicide is preventable. And I would not say that it's not preventable. I think these campaigns are fantastic. They're absolutely raising awareness. The 988 number is excellent to have there. But sometimes when the campaigns say, well, here are the signs of, know the signs of suicidal behavior, there's a lot of times there aren't any signs. So then what do you do? So I think the slogan, suicide is complicated, is a much more accurate way to sort of push that message out there, because there are so many factors involved that sort of come together at the same time that cause someone to be in that position, in that crisis mode.
Yeah, and to take their own life, and that's a tragedy. But yeah, well, it's a tough topic to talk about. I want to go back to what you talked about earlier, and that was self-care. And many of us don't quite know what is normal and self-care. I mean, I don't know. I don't feel normal most of the time.
I don't even like that word, but I did put it in the newsletter. But it's just, I guess it's just a conversation starter for us to think about for ourselves, what is normal. So, everyone has bad days and sad times and some depression, or maybe it can go on for a few days or a few weeks or even a few months, especially if you've had something big happen to you. But I think when is it time that you can self-care yourself and help yourself and get out with people or get out in nature, but when is it time that maybe you need a little something more? So I think some of the questions to ask yourself is, how much is this affecting my daily life? How much has my life changed? Mm-hmm. Am I having trouble concentrating? Have I lost my motivation? Do things that usually make me happy don't make me happy anymore? Yeah. Am I having trouble getting out of bed?
Sleeping.
Yeah.
Or sleeping at all.
Or sleeping at all, right? Or am I sleeping the day away? So there's a lot of those questions that maybe it's time to seek help. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And so how can we find out more about ourselves and make mental health a priority? There's something you put in your newsletter about understanding ourselves and giving us a few tips about that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to emotional literacy. It's really just learning about yourself. And there are so many resources that we can go to on the internet, at the library, just to learn a little more about, how are you feeling and what can you do about it? If you're starting to feel yourself slide a little, what do we do? Like maybe we want to stay away from things that drain us, things that we think are negative for us. Maybe it's the news. Maybe you can limit news to 30 minutes a week, because a lot of the news is repetitive. You could get out of the house and change the scenery. You can really maybe know who your people are and create that support system for yourself when you need it. And are you laughing at all during the day? It's such a silly question, but do you have something that you just love to do? It's a hobby. Maybe it is your job. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's a sport. What are you doing every day to bring out that laughter in yourself? I mean, sometimes you can get on YouTube and watch some comedians, whatever it is, but know what you need to do for yourself. And if you don't know, just start thinking about it.
Yeah. Go for a walk, take a hike, find some new friends.
Yeah.
That's harder to do if you don't make time for yourself. And I think that's important too, is making time for yourself to discover who you are in the pursuit of happiness. Because I think it all boils down to what is happiness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we get kind of caught up in the things we have to do. Like we have to wake up, we have to go to school, we have to go to work, we have to cook dinner, we have to go shopping, we have to drive the kids. Where are we in this?
Who are we?
Who are we and where are we? What do we want? What do we want to do?
And kind of a checklist of, we got to go through the day and do all this to feel productive. Mm-hmm. Can there be a day where you just don't feel productive and you can just hang out and do whatever comes and not have a checklist?
Yeah, right. Yep.
I want to talk about a questionnaire that was put out, and I don't know who put this out, but it's a self-questionnaire that we can take time to look at to find out more about how we are doing. Tell us where we can find this and how does this work?
So this is actually a diagnostic tool, and it's in the newsletter this month, which you can find on reachforhope.org, I believe, and a couple of other places. It's called the PHQ-9 questionnaire, and it is a set of 9 questions. Yep, there it is on the screen. It's a set of 9 questions that you can kind of self-administer to yourself and score yourself. For example, 1, do you have little interest or pleasure in doing things? Are you feeling tired with little energy? Poor appetite or overeating? Are you feeling bad about yourself? Are you having thoughts that you would be better off dead or hurting yourself in some way? So you can score yourself and kind of get an idea of where you are. Are you just having some temporary issues, or is this something where it might be time to reach out for some help?
And so when that's scored, does it tell you what you can do or how you can do that? Tell us a little bit about the scoring process.
The scoring is really just giving you a score from 0 to 27, and then it's telling you kind of where you are on the scale. But then if it's telling you that maybe professional help might be needed, maybe even medication might be needed, then you would take the next step. And if you don't know where to go for help, Reach for Help has put together a go-to resource list that is also on our website, and it's broken up into many sections. And in terms of crisis, where you would go right into the intake center. I can't think of the name of it right now, but it's
Crisis Stabilization Center, which I don't think is quite open yet, but it's on its way.
But there's another one. But it's got crisis help, and then it's got pages and pages of local therapists that you can call. It's also got a lot of helpful telephone numbers for you. And then it's got also the postvention for people who have lost someone. It's got tons of resources there in terms of websites and support groups. And so it's got the local resources and the national and the postvention stuff on it.
Yeah.
So that's what you would do. And really at the top of the page I put, which I feel is so important, if you had a fever for more than a week or 2, wouldn't you go to the doctor?
Yeah.
And this is no different. If you're feeling not yourself for a long time, there's no reason why you shouldn't call a doctor.
Yeah. Now we're talking about as in you, but what about if you have a friend or a relative or a son or a daughter or somebody that, you might not have as much control over? You can have control over yourself, but do you have control over other people? How do we get them to check out these resources, or I don't know, for lack of better words, coerce them to say, hey, maybe you should try this or that, or maybe we should go together. That all kind of stems with the QPR, question, persuade, and refer for that help. Yeah,
there's one thing I've learned at this point in my life is you can't coerce anyone to do anything ever. So all we can do is make it known that we're there for them, that we're a support for them, that we're not judging anything that they're feeling, and that whatever they need, we'll help them. And I think that's where the QPR training comes in that Reach for Hope also gives, which is question, persuade,
and refer.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to question the person in the kindest way you can. And we are not professionals.
No.
I think it's important to say that. We can only do so much. And there are times where we have to refer that friend. We may want to say to them, would you mind if I helped you get to help? Would you like me to make this phone call to this therapist for you to set it up? Because sometimes they just can't do it themselves, or they, for whatever reason, they can't. And then you're just basically persuading and referring them to go get that help.
And I think part of what you said, it has to do with that stigma that's been out there for so long. If I call and ask for help, or somebody, if I go for help and somebody finds out about it, oh, I'm going to be ashamed of myself, or I'm a failure. But that's not the case. Like you said, if you have a fever, wouldn't you go to the doctor? It's like having a broken arm or a broken leg, or going to the chiropractor, getting fixed. I mean, and it's kind of hard to fix mental health issues. You mentioned medication, and there's all different kinds of things besides medication that can help. Talk a little bit about that and the resources that are available for help.
Yes, and I'm not a doctor, but there are medications you can use, and sometimes medications don't work. So, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's something called TMS, transcranial stimulation, which is using magnetic therapy to stimulate the parts of the brain that are just not as active as they should be, which is what happens in depression. So that has had a really good success rate in a lot of people. There's different things like ketamine, which works on another pathway in the brain. There's something called Spravato, which works on another pathway in the brain. And I am not saying anybody should go do these things. I'm just saying they're out there to look into, speak with your doctor, and just try whatever you think works for you.
But I think the biggest thing is to make that first initial recognition, and then try to be active or proactive and do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, is taking that first step. But if you had somebody to hold your hand, or to say, maybe you should loosen up a little bit, or get rid of some of that stress in your life, and maybe pick out what's important to you and what's really not, or could be put by the wayside if you're getting to that stress level. Because a lot of it is caused by stress. It could be financial, it could be home problems, it could be work. There's all sorts of things that can trigger thoughts of wanting to take your own life.
Yeah, that's true. And it's good to have a plan, right? First, you want to identify, what are you feeling? And, you can put together a plan. I think that was a resource I put in a different newsletter that helps you actually put together a plan that works for you. Who am I going to reach out to if I'm feeling down on this particular day, or what am I going to do if I'm having a bad day?
Yeah, and I think there's all sorts of apps out there. The Safe UT app that can help get help for other people and or yourself. There's a plan app. So many resources. So where can they find this resource list that you talked about again? You helped put that together. There's a lot of people on that list. It's an incredible list. And where can they find out more about that?
That list is posted on the reachforhopeutah.org website. And if you do get a copy of this newsletter digitally, we have links in the newsletter.
And there's a lot of organizations out there that have come to the meetings, and they have reached out and said, yes, this is great. We really need this resource from all walks of life, from all different areas.
Yeah,
in
especially
the community.
if you're working in the community and you're in either the hospital, the schools, really any work. I mean, this is a great resource to just have by your phone.
Yeah, and the schools are, you mentioned the schools. We have the Reach for Hope, the Hope Squads. I was amazed to learn that there's over I don't even know how many kids now.
700.
700 kids that are actually being trained under the QPR, and they're there to help be peers, mentors, to try to help through the school system with that, so that we can get to our youth as well.
Yeah. The Hope Squad are in all the high schools. And they're a group of kids that have been chosen, that have volunteered, but have also been chosen to kind of be the eyes and the ears of the school. And they're people that are really easy to talk to, so that if the kids are not feeling up to it or so good, they know they have a peer to go to.
Yeah, and it's really important for people to know that there's someone out there that's going to listen to them.
It's been really successful in preventing quite a few.
Yeah. So, well, I'd just like to thank you, Claudine, for putting your writing skills and your knowledge and your experience to good use. And I think you're really making a difference out there. So thank you for your service to our community. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And we'd also like to thank our community partners out there for their help in providing help and resources, which are the Utah Suicide Prevention Coalition, the Live On, and Southwest Behavioral Health, as well as thanking the City of St. George and Intermountain St. George Regional Hospital for putting up billboards this month in raising awareness for suicide prevention. Because without our partners, we can't get that message out that there's reach for hope. There's always hope, and that's what's so important about this. So thanks for joining us, and thank you for joining us, and we hope that you get that message out there to help others who may need it. So thanks for all you do. Thanks for watching, and please share this with someone else. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
The Reach for Hope Coalition wants you to know that we care about you and we are here to help. If you or someone you know is thinking about suicide, reach out. You're not alone. To access resources for yourself or others, visit our webpage at reachforhopeutah.org. That's reach, the number 4, hopeutah.org. If you are experiencing a crisis,
please call or text the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988.
because you matter and there is always hope.